They laughed, not just a smirk, not just a chuckle, a full-on, boardroom-wide eruption of smug, white male laughter. Chanel Moore stood frozen at the head of the glossy oak conference table, her pitch deck still glowing on the projector behind her. She'd just finished outlining a revolutionary platform, clean tech powered by blockchain, built by a woman of color, ready to disrupt the entire energy sector. But the only feedback? Interesting, one man said, but maybe come back with a male co-founder. Another chimed in, you're ambitious, I'll give you that. Reminds me of my daughter, she has big dreams too. Chanel didn't cry. She gathered her laptop, her dignity, and walked out. But as she stepped into the elevator, her jaw clenched and her vision sharpened. Because what those men didn't know was that Chanel had already lined up meetings with 4 impact investors, one of whom had been following her research for over a year. And what none of them realized was that Chanel Moore was not someone you humiliate without consequences. Within 3 months, she secured a $3.5 million seed round. Within a year, her platform launched and caught fire, integrating with smart cities, reducing carbon emissions, and landing features in Forbes, Fast Company, and TechCrunch. And within 2 years, Chanel Moore was named on the Forbes Black Billionaire watch list, the youngest woman of color to build a clean tech empire from scratch. But she wasn't done, not yet. Because as she reviewed the annual report of her holding company, one tiny line caught her eye, a real estate investment her team had quietly closed. Moore Capital now owned a 34-story glass tower in downtown Atlanta. Her assistant looked up and said, "You'll like this. Floor 27 is still leased out to a firm called Graywell Holdings." Chanel's lips curled into a knowing smile. Graywell Holdings. The same firm where the men had laughed her out of the room. The next month, they received an email from the new landlord's office. Mandatory lease negotiation meeting with building ownership. Suite 2700. When they arrived, suits pressed and egos intact, the receptionist handed them visitor badges. The name on the badge read, Chanel Moore Owner. They were led to the same conference room, same table. But this time Chanel stood at the head, not with a pitch, but with a proposal. "I'm not here to evict you," she began. "I'm here to educate you." She unveiled plans to convert the entire 27th floor into a startup incubator for Black women founders, fully funded, fully resourced, and publicly backed by Moore Capital. And, she added with a poised smile, "You'll be guest speakers on diversity every quarter." The room went silent, but this time no one laughed, because Chanel Moore wasn't a hopeful entrepreneur anymore. She was the building owner, the boss, the movement. And just before walking out of the room, she turned back and said, "Next time you underestimate a Black woman, make sure she doesn't own the land you're standing on." Just when they thought her generosity was simply a PR play, the twist came. 3 months after Graywell Holdings agreed, begrudgingly, to speak on diversity panels hosted by Chanel's incubator, the first event went live. Cameras, press, even a few Forbes reporters in the back. The execs from Graywell showed up in tailored suits, faces tight with fake humility. They spoke about allyship, listening, and supporting women-led innovation. But what they didn't know, Chanel's team had been quietly auditing Graywell Holdings for months, digging into their hiring practices, their internal complaints, and their DEI funding. The receipts, staggering, discrimination lawsuits, a buried harassment claim, and a leaked internal memo stating DEI is a distraction from profit. The second panel was live-streamed, and Chanel took the stage, this time with documents in hand. She smiled at the audience, then turned to the executives and said, "Before we begin the quanda, I'd like to talk about what accountability really looks like." She slid a thick folder across the table to the moderator. "Everything you're about to see is public record, but most people don't know how to look for it." Screens lit up, the audience gasped. Hashtags started trending before the panel ended. More receipts the real way, Black-owned justice overnight. Graywell Holdings' reputation collapsed. 2 executives resigned. A whistleblower came forward. Their biggest client pulled a $28 million contract, and as the dust settled, Chanel made her final move. She didn't just remove them from the 27th floor, She offered the space to their former assistants and junior staff, mostly black and brown women, who had quietly endured their toxic leadership for years, and with funding from more capital, those assistants became founders, each one mentored, resourced, empowered. Chanel walked through the newly renovated floor a week later. It smelled like new paint and fresh ambition. One of the women looked up from her laptop and said, "I never thought I'd have my own company." Chanel smiled and replied, "Neither did they." What would you do with the power to rewrite the rules? Subscribe to Dark Side of Luna for real stories where justice isn't just a dream, it's a plot twist. This is more than storytelling, it's revolution. Subscribe to Dark Side of Luna to catch 1,000 more true stories like this one. Stories of resistance, courage, and the fight for what's right. Hit that bell so you don't miss a single episode. Because we're just getting started.